Hi and welcome to this week's Mortgage Broker broadcast. This week's podcast, I'm going to look at how and why is it easy to become a self-employed mortgage broker, but then how easy is it to stay as a self-employed mortgage broker? Because the mortgage broking as an industry really wants people to be self-employed. And yes, I get that there are employed roles out there. Yes, I get that there are firms that recruit trainee mortgage advisors as an employed, but you find far more firms recruiting self-employed mortgage brokers. You find far more networks promoting the fact that they want self-employed mortgage brokers. So they will welcome into the industry. So as a self-employed mortgage broker, you've got your CeMap 1 in your hand. If you've got all three, then great, but you can advise on CeMap 1. It is fairly easy to become a self-employed mortgage broker, but the challenge is staying as one, because I think there are various reasons for that. I think there's various things that I want to talk about in the podcast about that. So let's just get into the podcast. You're listening to the Mortgage Broker broadcast with me, Craig Skelton, the podcast which helps mortgage brokers at all stages of their mortgage broking career. This week's podcast, I'm looking at how easy is it to become a self-employed mortgage broker, but then on the flip side of that, once you become that self-employed mortgage broker, how easy is it to stay at one? And the reason why I want to talk about this, because, and I will come into it in a bit more detail, is that we are seeing quite a few of inexperienced, newly qualified mortgage brokers coming into the industry and turning away from the industry fairly quickly. And I wanted to really look at that, because I think as an industry, it is pretty easy to become a self-employed mortgage broker, because if you've got your CeMap 1 and you've got the right attitude and behaviour, you've got a willingness to work from an office or your willingness to work from home remotely, you can pretty much find a firm that is recruiting for a self-employed mortgage broker. You can always find a firm that's looking for somebody as a self-employed mortgage broker. However, if it is that easy, why are inexperienced, newly qualified people leaving the industry? And is that the point? Is it because it is so easy? CeMap 1, CeMap 2, CeMap 3, and then you're starting your career. Is it easy to become self-employed as a mortgage broker? And that's why people, because it is so easy, are now looking to get out. So the thing is with it right now, and into next year in 2023, clients need advice. Clients need mortgage brokers more than ever before. So why are people leaving? Why is that the case? Is it down to support or the lack of support? Is it down to the network or the firm over-promising and under-delivering in terms of help, support, training, that sort of thing? Or is it down to the individual who didn't have a full understanding of the role and just saw the good and didn't really understand the good, the bad, and the roller coaster ride of life as a mortgage broker? Is it down to that? Was it sold as a golden ticket? Oh, it's easy to make money as a mortgage broker. You can have great work-life balance as a self-employed mortgage broker. And yes, it can be very rewarding. It's a very rewarding role. You've got people in very stressful situations, moving home, buying home, selling the home. It's pretty stressful. It's one of the most stressful things people can do. However, it can be demanding too on the broker, especially when you're first starting out, especially when you're trying to find your process. If you're not having that help, support, that level of commitment that you need from the start, then it can be easy to throw the towel in. It can be easy just to give up and go back to what you knew before. So, like I say, it's easy to get into becoming a broker. And the thing is, what people sometimes don't understand is how challenging it can be. So when clients want an answer, they want an answer now. Even though you've been chasing them for weeks for the documents or that last bank statement or the pay slip or anything like that, and you've been chasing them for weeks, and you've now got that document, and then now it's the urgency you've got that urgency from the client to get things sorted. That's how it works. So it can be very demanding. When leads come through, and you get a lead come through and you ring it straight away and they don't answer and they don't reply to email, even though 2 seconds ago they sent you a message through asking for mortgage advice. So it can be very demanding for somebody that's new into the industry and not prepared themselves for the challenge in life as a mortgage broker. They were just sold that golden ticket, shall we say. So it's the question is then, was it down to the newly qualified, inexperienced person, not the right person for mortgage broker in the first place? Did they have the persistence needed to become a successful mortgage broker? Was they prepared for this new role in this new industry? And do they accept that CeMap is just the start of the learning? And I think that sometimes when you look at those those several things, it can be one of those things, it could be a mixture of those things. So what I want to do is just get my take on 3 things you can do to improve your chance of not only starting a career as a mortgage broker, but building and staying in the career as a mortgage broker when you're just starting out. So the first thing I would do is research the industry. And you need to understand what it's truly like as a self-employed mortgage broker, day in, day out. What does a day look like as a self-employed mortgage broker? What does a typical day look like? Is there actually a typical day as a mortgage broker? Is there such a thing as a typical day? Because I think if you spoke to mortgage brokers, they will say there's no typical day. And there are plenty of business owners and brokers on social media that will give you feedback on how life is as a broker, and you need to have that reality. You want to understand the good, the bad, and the ugly as well, because that's what you're letting yourself in for. You've got to understand what you're truly letting yourself in for. So first of all, make the decision of, is this industry right for you? Is this industry right for you? The second thing you've got to look at then is, once you've decided that yes, broking is for you, it's now finding the right firm. And that's what you need to do, is finding the right firm. Do your research on the firm. What help and support is there on offer as a new broker? You might be coming from banking world into self-employed mortgage broking. You will still need help and support. You may be an experienced broker before, but then now going self-employed, you will still need that help and support. So what does that help and support look like, and what help and support is on offer? Who's giving that help and support? What about the culture of the firm as well? That is so important. What about their core values? Are those core values aligned with yours? Because if they are, you've got a far greater chance of building this career and the relationship being a success. So you've got to make sure that, one thing that I do see quite often, and I've talked about before and other people have talked about it, is the over promise and under deliver. So make sure that the firm core values are right, culture's right, and it's not a culture of over promising and under delivering. So that's my second point. And the last point, and the most important, I think, is preparing yourself for life as a mortgage broker, because it isn't for everybody. CeMap 1, CeMap 2 and 3 are just the start of your learning, as I've said before. One thing that, when you're coming from a role, when you're coming from employed, when you're coming from somewhere where you might be worked in the banking as a mortgage broker, worked a building side to your bank, you know that level of that lending criteria, you know the level of affordability calculators, all those sorts of things. When you're becoming a broker, you can never know everything. If you're setting your stall out from the start, when you're newly as a mortgage broker, thinking that my goal is to know everything as a mortgage broker, you're setting yourself up to fail, because you will never know everything about being a mortgage broker. You are constantly learning, you're constantly developing. So there is no master book, there is no big folder of how to be a successful mortgage broker, how to be a successful self-employed mortgage broker. There is no such thing as that book. So yes, you have to be driven. Yes, you have to be motivated. Yes, being a broker is as rewarding as it is challenging. As I said before, buying homes, selling homes, moving home can be stressful one for the client. And because you've got so many people involved, with vendors, estate agents, solicitors, surveyors, they're just a few people that are involved with the process, and you can only control what you can control. And that can be difficult for some people sometimes, where there's all these other people involved that are not delivering the same experience and the same levels of service that you would be delivering is hard for some people to accept sometimes, and that's why people tend to leave as well. But the big thing for me are preparing yourself to become a mortgage broker or sticking it out as a mortgage broker is persistence. Above all else, you need persistence. You need to be persistent with your leads. You need to be persistent with your clients. You need to be persistent with lenders. And you need to be persistent with yourself. If you haven't got persistence ingrained in your body, you will not be a successful mortgage broker, because you've got to be persistent with every single aspect in terms of your role. So just to recap, you need to know the industry. You need to be sure the firm is right for you. You need to be sure that the role is right for you. And so make sure that you prepare yourself. The takeaway for me is it is easy to become a self-employed mortgage broker. The difficulty is staying at one. And before you leave the industry, before you think about, you're sat here right now thinking, I'm one of those people that are looking to leave the industry, even though you're qualified, just ask yourself the question is, why did you want to become a mortgage broker in the first place? And if you're prepared to give that all up, then leave the industry. If you're not, then have that motivation, have that drive, and get that persistence, and maybe find the other role or find that new firm, but don't leave that industry. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Any thoughts, feedbacks or comments, put in the chat on whichever platform you're watching or listening to this podcast. And if you're thinking about becoming a self-employed mortgage broker, or you're looking to set up your own mortgage broker brand and business, or you're looking to accelerate your mortgage broker business, get in touch so we can discuss how I can help you and support you to achieve your goals. And above all else, and don't forget to run your own race. Thank you for listening to the Mortgage Broker Broadcast, the podcast which helps mortgage brokers at all stages of their mortgage broking career. If you have any questions about this podcast or any topics you want us to discuss, or if you're interested in working with me further, then please get in touch.